What's good? It's Boy Dude Reviews, and despite 2020 being a slightly disappointing year in terms of a lot of things being cancelled, i.e., a lot of films and some TV shows, it's been a year for me to try and get into a lot of anime. Despite some shows being delayed a few months, a little bit back, I actually got into quite a lot of shows that have already been airing or shows that have been completed, before 2020, and shows that literally began in this year. So I decided I'm going to rank all 30 anime I have watched in 2020 from the worst to the best. I will also include movies, so anime films as well as anime shows, and most of these animes I haven't even completed, like some of them are still ongoing, but I decided that if I've literally watched more than 2 episodes, I will include it into this list. So yeah, that's going to be quite a lot. A little review on all of them. Some of them I've already reviewed on this channel, others will be my first time. So yeah, it's going to be a very long list. Without further ado, here is my all top 30 anime series slash movies ranked from the worst to the best. Let's start off with number 30, and coming at number 30 is Sword Art Online Alicization War of the Underworld. So the Alicization series has been split into two parts. Part 1 is called Alicization, and the second part is called Alicization War of the Underworld. And War of the Underworld practically began literally late of 2019, but most of the season was in 2020, so it does kind of count as a 2020 series. And the second half of the War of the Underworld bit was when Sinon basically went into the battlefield. That's basically what we got this year, and the reason why it is at the bottom of the list in terms of all the series I have seen this year is that it's definitely the worst thing I have seen in the entire year. Now, in terms of the pros, what I did like about it was cool seeing all these old timers like Klein, Agiel, I think that was his name, Sinon, Lifa, and all the others, as well as Asuna, in this War of the Underworld, basically trying to help Kirito and all that jazz. I flipping loved all that. It brought back a lot of memories of me watching this show back in the day, and the animation is nice. It's not as good as Alicization Part 1, but it's pretty decent. I also really did like the audio mixing. The soundtrack was really good and really dope. Asuna is obviously the star of this little series. She's the one character who I think is the most competent and the one I find least annoying. But apart from that, the writing was just kind of all over the place. I love the dialogue, and there's a lot of weird, gross scenes in this series that just put me off entirely. Kirito as a character is just kind of boring and bland to the point where I kind of forgot he was in this coma state. I literally was just watching it for Arsenal and the rest of the gang, and Kirito was just kind of sitting there, just obviously he's in this coma state, but man, him as a character, he's such a very dull character that I just didn't really get why everyone wanted to literally do all this for Kirito, and the writing really did go a bit downhill. There was this episode dedicated to Kirito feeling guilty of killing a lot of people in the original Sword Art Online video game, but I never really got why he felt guilty, because at the end of the day it wasn't like he was killing actual people. They were just in the video game, and literally I couldn't even finish the series because I just couldn't stand it. The pacing, the writing was just so atrocious, and there was a lot of weird, awkward moments, awkwardly paced scenes. There's a scene that kind of comes back to the movie that apparently is canon, apparently is fillerish, but they kind of incorporated that movie scene into this little arc, and dude, it kind of sucked for me. I don't really want to see this show again. It was just I don't even want to talk about Sword Art Online again. Never. Done. At number 29, we have got The Little Norse Prince. Now, I've already pretty much done my little review of this film. The animation style is very different to a lot of modern day animes. There's a lot of more in-betweens in the frames, and I appreciated that they used widescreen for this film instead of the 16:9 ratio. And some characters were interesting. I did like the villagers, they were cool, but Hilda was such a very unlikable person. She has this personality that you just don't like. And I've obviously talked a heck of a lot about this character and like other characters in my full review. You can check it out right now. But it was just such a, even though it's an hour and 22 minutes, the pacing is just so sluggish and dull. And what rewatching the Takahata films, like, man, this one was probably his worst one because it looks the least like a Takahata film and feels like something else entirely, to be honest with you. But check out my full review. Number 28, Panda Go Panda. This was kind of a collaboration of Miyazaki and Takahata. You can check out the full review. But yeah, this is basically about this little 4-year-old girl who basically meets a panda and they go on these adventures. And it's not really a film. It was originally released for TV and they kind of combined it into like a movie length ish film to compensate for the half an hour and runtime. But yeah, I thought it was kind of cutesy and all that. It does remind me of the Totoro film. This is where Totoro did originally come from. Yeah, this was directed by Takahata, but it was written by Miyazaki. It feels more like a Miyazaki film than a Takahata film, to be honest with you. It's cute. It's good for like 5-year-olds just to pass the time, but it's the animation is really lacking in this one. It's very cheap, very quick, on a budget. But number 27, Cheetah Brat. This was the first Takahata film that felt like a Takahata film, and his first kind of like official like film entirely. And yeah, this film is screaming Takahata, from the art style to the pacing to the writing. Like, yeah, I much prefer this film over the previous ones because I like the character Chi. Like, she did feel more like a grounded character in this Takahata world. There's a lot of like early like Takahata like references from like future films like Pompoko and Only Yesterday. There's like a lot of that style, and even the color scheme feels more like those, akin to it. But I wasn't really a fan of it because film didn't really go anywhere and didn't really have a grand ending as like the other films. It just kind of ended, but that's kind of like how Takahata does his films, to be honest with you. Number 26, we've got The Seven Deadly Sins, Wrath of the Gods, Core 2. Oh boy, this season was something else. Like, yeah, I will admit the good thing about this season was that we did get to see a lot of like Meliodas' sort of backstory and like how he met Elizabeth, and like I like the whole Elizabeth Meliodas, like Elizabeth dying and she being reincarnated. I thought that was so interesting and deep and really cool. And the last 2 episodes were really interesting. We had Barn go to this like weird world where he's trying to find Meliodas' true soul, like not the weird demon form, but the one we've all loved and known. And it's got me excited for the next season. But there was a lot of moments in this season that really disappointed me, like the Meliodas and Escanor fight. The animation was very bad, and it was heavily criticized. Like, the animation, mate, like what were they thinking? Like, oh my gosh, it was badly paced, badly animated, very disappointing. I feel like the show didn't always have this bad animation, but they switched studios. Studio Dean, I think it's called, and they've done a horrible job adapting it. The character designs look cool, but when it comes to like actual motion, there's nothing there. So crossing my fingers that the final season will be adapted well. But number 25, we've got Gorshi the Shallowist. Now, Gorshi the Shallowist is another Takahata show about this not little boy, this like young man who's just kind of struggling to like get into the groove of playing his cello, and he kind of gets the help of these animal critters of the woods. I like the film. I like the art style. I like the 4:3 ratio. It was quick, it was short, it got to the point, and yeah, it was a nice relaxing film. A film you probably put on like on a Sunday night just for you to relax and just kick back and like watch it. 24, you've got Burn the Witch. Now, I've only seen 1 episode of this, and apparently it is a spin-off to the Bleach series. I've only seen episode 1 of it because apparently it's a movie, but it was split into 3 parts. And this film has a really nice looking art style. Like, I really was a fan of like the animation. When you compare it to the actual Bleach series, like it's like leaps and bounds ahead. Like, the animation, like, the solid character art and like the real fun characters, like the two lead female protagonists. Really cool, really great. I wish it was a little bit longer. It's only 3 episodes, but yeah, I'll check the whole thing out and do a proper review of this in the future. Like, I need to finish it because I've only seen part 1, but so far so good, man. Like, loving it. And yeah, I did a reaction of it. Joe, check it out on my reaction channel, and that's Stranger Bay Reacts. But number 23, we have got Guilty Crown. Now, I reviewed this film a long time ago, which was only like 11 months ago. Not too long ago, to be honest with you. Of course, the number one thing about this film is that the animation is so stellar. Like, there's a lot of really cool sequences, like when Shu basically gets the crown and he transforms and all that jazz. I flipping loved all that jazz. Like, it's very colorful, it's very bright, it's vibrant, it's action packed. It's basically got a lot of, it kind of ticks the boxes for like what makes a, you know, a shonen anime. Like, you got like a, you know, your typical main character who's just kind of like doing his thing, but at the end of the day, it didn't really feel shonen because the main character wasn't that interesting. He was kind of a blank slate. I was more interested in like all the other characters in the entire series that surrounded this one character, because this dude was just a bit of a bore, and it felt very similar to Code Geass. In fact, I think Code Geass did a slightly better version adapting like this type of story where you get this ordinary kid and being thrown into this world. At least with that show, the main character had an interesting character development. Like, he went from this like normal high school dude to just kind of a cruel person at times, you know. I mean, the main character in this show does go through like a little cruel phase in a way, but yeah, he kind of comes out on top, and I feel like, yeah, I don't know, dude. I wasn't really feeling it. At first it was good, and then it just kind of slowed down. Then it became very predictable and kind of uninteresting. And then, of course, I watched it in the dub, and like at times the acting was very bad. Like, I wasn't a fan of some episodes. The acting just, ooh, that English dubbing was not good at times, man. But it was nice for the visuals and all that jazz. And check out my full review because I did a full breakdown of that anime. Go check it out. Number 22, we have Fairy Tail. Now, this show I watched on Funimation, and I have to admit, I've watched like the first 130 episodes of it, and I don't want to finish it, to be honest with you. Like, I don't want to finish it. I have no desire to finish it. But let's talk about the pros. And the pros, yeah, I do like a lot of the female characters in the show far more than the male characters. I think a lot of the female characters in this show have such better character growth, like Urza, Lucy, Kana, like all of them, like even Mary Jane, I think that was her name, Wendy. All these female characters are so much more interesting over the male characters, who tend to kind of be blank slates, particularly Gray. And I'm not a fan of Gray's voice actor in the English dub. He does such a bland performance, and he gets kind of worse and worse with each season. Even Kana's voice actress isn't that good. I'm a fan of the openings and the endings, they're pretty cool. But you kind of watch the show for the more comedic moments and just like the more chilled out episodes. This isn't a show where you just watch it for the plot, because there kind of isn't a plot, and if there is a plot, it doesn't always make sense and all add up. The only plot or arc that I kind of liked was Urza and Jalal arc with their backstory and all that jazz. That was probably the best written arc in the Fairy Tail throughout. Like, Urza, she's my favorite character in the whole show. In fact, most of the females are like my favorite. And oh, but I don't know, what is it with the male characters and they're like, the only character who's a male character who I somewhat found interesting, like apart from Natsu because he's obviously the shonen guy, was the guild master's grandson. I forgot his name, but I really liked his like character growth and like his development. I thought he was pretty interesting and cool. But apart from that, man, like this show, it's kind of a letdown, like, and I feel like with each arc that keeps coming, it gets a little bit worse and worse and worse. The whole Sky arc with the Fairy Tail Guild being like kind of like, I don't know what happened, but Natsu and Wendy go to the sky and they meet their alternative versions. The most lazy written arc I have ever seen in any anime, dude. Like, that was so lazily written. Like, oh my gosh, could they not have written something better than that? Man, that was pathetic for me. Like, that killed my enjoyment for this show. But number 21, we have got Kill La Kill. Now, what is this show all about? When transfer student Rukio, searching for her father's killer, comes to Hanajo, she challenges the Elite Four to a battle that quickly consumes the school. And yeah, I've only seen 1 or 2 episodes of the show and I just stopped. Like, I mean, the art style was very vibrant. I love the art style. I watched it in dub. The acting at times was okay, but I literally couldn't finish it because I hated the way they portrayed these female characters. Like, they're like 14 years old and they are super sexualized. It's kind of gross, to be honest with you. I kind of was like, nah, I'm not watching these kids looking like this. They're young girls and the main character's wearing the outfit and it looks disgusting looking, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not digging this. I'm out. Like, I only watched 2 episodes of it, but the art style was cool. Like, but the pacing, what the heck was with that pacing, man? Like, in 1 episode, so much happened and my brain couldn't process everything happening. It was just, I felt like they were cutting a lot from the manga or like the novel or whatever they were adapting. But yeah, let's go on to the next one. Number 20, we've got Re:Zero. Now, this was the first like series I reacted on my reaction channel, so if you want to see my reaction of like the entire season 1, go check it out on Stranger Bay Reacts. But yeah, what is this show all about? Subaru Natsuki, an ordinary 18-year-old dude, gets teleported to this weird fantasy world and stuff start happening. Like, he gets to know the people in this world and he's like, oh wow, he's really embracing the world, and then all of a sudden he keeps dying and then kind of comes back, and then the whole day kind of resets. And yeah, that's pretty much the story so far. Like, I've only seen the first season. I don't know what season 2 has in store, but let's talk about the pros. The dubbing is fantastic. Like, all the actors in this show do a fantastic job. Like, one of the best dubs. I've watched it in dubbed and subbed. I've watched the first 14 episodes, the first 16 episodes in dub, finished the rest in sub just because I kind of wanted to watch it up to date. But I actually found the first 9 episodes to be probably the best in my opinion, like in terms of like the writing and like the character development and building. But I kind of found like once Subaru started to get used to the world and he was living in it more, I kind of found myself a little bit bored, to be honest with you. I thought we would have got some sort of like more answers to like why he's in this world, but they kind of let him stay in this world for more longer than he needs to be honest with you. But I mean, it is what it is, to be honest with you. Subaru, Amelia, Ram, all these characters are all fun to watch, and yeah, I mean, it's not the best series of all time. I'm still kind of surprised as to how popular this show is. Of course, it's better than Sword Art Online by a long shot, but yeah, the dub is still a good job. Will I check season 2 out? Maybe I'll probably check out the second season in dubbed or subbed. I don't really care, it's all the same to me. The thing the show does well is that I love how the dub and the sub sound so similar, even though they're in different languages. Like, the English dudes and dudettes do such a good job capturing the spirit of the original Japanese language, which is a rarity in anime, to be honest with you. But with that said, let's go to number 19, and it's Children Who Chase the Lost Voices. Now, after like 2 films in the Makoto Shinkai film that were kind of meh, this one was the best one like so far of me watching them, and I was kind of surprised as to how Ghibli like this film was. Like, this film is like, it feels like a Ghibli film, but at the same time different enough to feel more like a Shinkai film. Okay, I will admit the second act, like just before the second act begins, it does kind of slow down, but this film has such a great story and all the characters are so unique. Like, the main female girl and the supply teacher, like, I've done a full review of this film, but man, like, I kept bashing about their like whole deal and all that lot. I flipping loved the visual look. The designs were just amazing to look at. I will admit, when the film began, I was like, oh, it does feel a little bit too Ghibli like, but then it went into its own thing and became its own story, and it's one that I'll probably rewatch again in the future because it was so damn amazing that you just gotta rewatch it again and again, to be honest with you, dude. Go check out my full review, I flipping love it. Number 18, we have got 5 centimeters per second. Now this film I liked because we see this main dude who kind of like, he's kind of growing up and kind of experiencing the romance from him being a kid, teenager to adult. I didn't realize it was the same dude until I had to kind of like research it and then like look on Wikipedia, but it made it so much more interesting. And I think this is probably the most shiniest looking film in terms of background. Every single background has such a gloss and gleam and shine to it that it just looks so much hard work and effort was put into this, and I flipping loved it. You know, it was just such a beautiful looking film, very short, but it got to the point. It was beautiful. I'll check it out if I were you, my do's and dudettes. Number 17, A Place Promised in Our Early Days, another Shinkai film. Now this is definitely Shinkai's first film in his like filmology, and it's very rough looking at it. Like the designs are very kind of like, they're not fully refined, but the designs are still there. It's not as lush looking as his future films, but it's still a pretty nice film to watch. You know, it has a lot of cool sequences and all that jazz, and the characters are all different and unique for you to just flipping have a ball watching it, dudes. 16. Gurren Lagann. Simon and many others live underground to escape the terror of beastmen. Their dream of returning to the Earth's surface seems possible when a giant mecha suddenly crashes into the underground home. Now, I've pretty much only watched 7 episodes of it, and from the 7 episodes I have seen, I'm digging the show. I'm watching it in the dub. I think it does a good job, although there's a lot of fan service in this film that makes it a little bit off-putting at times to watch. In fact, they go a little bit too overboard with that fan service, and to the point where some of the female characters don't even feel like real people. They feel like made up fiction things that a dude in his late 20s made up, to be honest with you. It doesn't feel real or grounded or genuine. It just feels like fantasy, to be honest with you. But I can't judge the show on only 7 episodes alone, but from what I've seen so far, it is pretty cool. I'm digging the story, and the pacing is not too bad. And yeah, number 15 on my list is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, another series that I haven't necessarily finished. I'm only on episode 6, and so far so good. Now, as I said before, I've only seen 6 episodes, but from the 6 episodes I've seen, I initially watched about 3 of these episodes in the dub on Netflix, and I had to replay it because the voices were so off-putting and distracting that I just couldn't really get into the story, and I had to keep rewinding it. So I eventually gave up and watched it in the sub, which is a lot better watching it in Japanese than in the dub, because man, I don't know what the people who were dubbing it were thinking of hiring American actors trying to voice British people. I mean, there's British voice actors in the world. Why couldn't they just hire them, man? Or just freaking go all out with their American accents? It wouldn't have been too jarring. I've seen it done before, but man, that voice acting was bad. But yeah, I'm digging the show. I love the characters and I love the story, and the whole setting is really cool. Very unique art style, very weird, kind of trippy psychedelic scenes at times. But yeah, I'm really digging the show, and I'm really curious to see where it's gonna go. And yeah, one day I'll do a review of this show. One day it will happen. Number 14, The Promised Neverland. Now this show, I've only seen 3 episodes so far, and it's not a bad show. Episode 1 flipping leaves your jaw dropping, and it kind of makes you want more and more and more. Yeah, it was unexpected. I wasn't expecting the main character to be female, because from the initial poster she looks like a dude. Like, I've only seen like her head, like of the 3 main characters. I didn't realize it was a female, so that adds an interesting sort of like dynamic to the whole gang and the situations and everything about it. I'm digging these characters, I'm digging the show, and yeah, watching it subbed on Crunchyroll is not bad. It's pretty cool. I want to know what's gonna happen, and man, there's something messed up going on behind the scenes. I want to find out. Number 13, we got Mirai. It's another Mamoru Hosoda film, the same dude who directed the Wolf Children film. And now this film went into a direction I wasn't expecting. I didn't expect this whole weird time travel, weird back and forth, where the boy is kind of like interacting with his baby sister, but she's older than him, and it was such a weird twist that I wasn't expecting. And it's obviously in the trailer, so it's not spoiling, but I never saw the trailer, so yeah, I was surprised. And the flipping animation is just on another level. There's some rotoscoping in this film that I have noticed, particularly like this bike scene, but I loved like the way the characters move around. It's very fluid at times, and it has a lot of cool sequences, and it's very lively and bright, and it is a cool film. It has some weird moments that I don't really get, but it's so wholesome and enjoyable that you can't hate it. Plus I watched it in dub, and beautiful. Wonderful job, my dude. Wonderful job. Number 12, we got My Hero Academia Season 4. Now, I saw this season at the beginning of the year, and this season was really interesting because we had a lot of interesting character development, particularly was Kirishima. I really did like his backstory and like him, why he wanted to be a hero. Mirio was a great addition to this series, and obviously something happens in the middle of this, and I think if they didn't have the thing that happened to Mirio in this season, I think people would be like freaking screaming at the TV screens, begging Horikoshi as to why they didn't have Mirio as the main character, because he is so cool. He feels like a main shonen protagonist. He looks the part. He looks like All Might, but he's very different in his own right, and he's just a cool dude. He kind of puts Izuku, he kind of overshadows him a little bit too much at times because he's just way too cool. But I really did like the fight sequence against the main villains of the series, and Eri is just adorable, and she needed saving. Like Eri's whole story, she was the best part of the whole season in my opinion. The school festival arc was also interesting as well. It was a much different paced arc compared to this arc, when this arc was very dramatic and in extreme and just wow. I noticed the animation sadly did kind of drop at times. I noticed this when they were performing in the school festival. Like, it didn't look exactly how I wanted it to look. It was a little bit stiff looking, but it was still pretty cool and all that jazz, and it's obviously setting it all up for the big season 5 premiere, which I can't wait. But yeah, this season was pretty fun and really cool. Go check it out. I'd probably do a full review of it one day. Number 11, we got Black Clover, episodes 16 to episodes 122. Now, this is kind of like, it's not necessarily a season, it's just a couple of episodes that came out this year, but it's kind of like the last little, it's kind of like the ending of this arc where we have like Asta and Yuno teaming up to defeat the Night Eye devil evil person thing. I forgot what he was called, but man, the animation improved, and wow, like the studio who made this art really did do a good job. Like, wow, it was really great. It was intense and yummy, dude, amazing, loved it. At number 10, we have got The God of High School. Now, I saw this show in the middle of the summer. I have a lot of memories. I even kind of did a little review of this on my channel. I did like a little reaction, and this show was amazing. This was the first time I really got to know Mappa. I mean, I've already seen Mappa's animation, like with Kakaguri and Yuri on Ice. They were two pretty amazing episodes, but this was like the first of a bunch of series that Mappa was going to make this year, and God of High School kicked it off with episode 1. The animation, dude, was on another level. I mean, wow, dude, like the show looks beautiful. Like, it's moving, it's really moving. I like the lighting style of it. I love the characters, they're all really unique, and the designs are just so interesting. And yeah, just seeing this like made me really like, it put me in a good spot knowing that Mappa was was going to do Attack on Titan justice and do a really good job, and they did not disappoint. This show was beautiful to look at, but unfortunately I didn't finish it. I only finished it up to episode 7, and I never got to finish it because other stuff just got in the way of things, and I never finished it. But one day I will definitely rewatch this show and see where it kind of ends. I know there's a season 2 coming out very soon, and I'll probably check it out one day. But yeah, this show was pretty fun, and I love the characters and the story and all that lot. And yeah, go check it out. It's on Crunchyroll. Support the industry. Number 9, we got The Tower of God. Now, although this show wasn't created by MAPPA, it was still a webtoons creation in a way. The only reason why I wanted to watch this show was because one of my favorite YouTubers, AOA, they kind of were talking about it. Go check that channel out as well. It's a really good channel. Anyway, they were talking about this show, and I think one of the episodes they uploaded was episode 12, Rachel's True Intentions. And I always saw Rachel's face on like promotional stuff and like on other channels, and I thought she was just a normal kid, this normal girl. And when AOA basically released that video saying Rachel's True Intentions, I was like, whoa, Rachel's True Intentions, what's that all about? And it got me into this show. Like, once they uploaded that video, I was like, okay, I want to see what this is all about. And the entire time I was watching it to see what Rachel was up to. And yeah, she turns out to be an interesting person, interesting character. I won't spoil it for you guys, but Tower of God is a pretty cool show. I watched it in the dub because obviously I wanted to watch. I seem to prefer watching dubs over subs because I like to just kind of sit back and soak in all the animation, and it helps me. I'm less distracted when I see subtitles, to be honest, when I don't see subtitles, in my opinion. And it's a pretty okay show. It's not as good as the other series of this year, but it's okay. It's fine. It's pretty cool. The characters are all unique and different, and I do like the show, and I'm really curious to see where it's gonna go. I can't wait for season 2 to come out, when it comes out one of these days. But yeah, go check it out. I recommend it. Number 8, we got Jujutsu Kaisen, MAPPA's second series of the year. Man, the studio have been on a roll. This show looks so beautiful. Like, man, MAPPA, like, we thought God of High School was great, but I think this show has an even better visual look. Like, man, the animation and like the sound design is so great, but the characters are also really interesting. Each and every one of them, from Yuji to Gorgio to Megayumi to Nobaru, every one of these characters are so interesting and likable. Nobara is just a much better written version of Sakura. Like, man, she's just such a more interesting character. I also like the story and like where it's going. It's a show. It feels like one of the most maturest Shonen Jump series I've ever seen. It's probably the darkest and most mature Shonen Jump series I've ever seen out of all of them. It's definitely for the older viewers, definitely. There's a lot of dark stuff in this show, which I love. I've only seen up to episode 10 of this show, so I'm not too sure what's going to happen next, but I'm looking forward to. But one thing about this show is that because the animation is so vibrant and so fluid at times, and the background art, I kind of wanted to soak in the visuals, and I will admit the subtitles did distract me from all of that, to be honest with you. I kind of am waiting for the dub to come out so I can just watch the whole thing in dub and then do a proper review, because as I'm watching it, I feel like I'm not enjoying it because of the subtitles, and sadly I feel like it would be a better watch in dub. Normally I'm like okay with it. I mean, the voice actors are all fun and interesting and unique, but I feel like I would probably enjoy it a bit more in the dub, so I'll probably give it a rewatch and then do a full review of it. But man, it's still cool in sub, man. It's a fantastic series. I can't wait to see what the second core is gonna bring us, my dudes. And at number 7, we have got Heroes Rising, the My Hero Academia second movie. Now, this is definitely My Hero Academia at its best in terms of animation and visuals. The animation is like on another level, and it kind of explains as to why season 4's animation started to drop, because I'm guessing they put all their time and energy and effort into this one film. I kind of missed this film out in the cinemas because someone told me in the comments that it has a bit of a spoiler for the future of season 5, and I just wanted to read past season 4 in the manga so I can kind of appreciate this film, but I didn't need to be honest with you. But mate, this film was on another level. I watched it in the dub, and it's the second time I've seen My Hero in the dub. The first time was Two Heroes, and dude, the dubbing isn't that bad. Like, I think the female voices sound the better, like the best, but the men do sound a bit odd at times. Like, Kat-chan's voice is just not right. Deku's voice is growing on me, as well as Shoto's and Ida's, but man, Kat-chan, it's going to take a long time for me to get used to that dude's voice. But I flipping did like the story. I loved the characters, and the villain was interesting and cool and unique, and I kind of like how they tied it into the main story, even though it doesn't feel like it kind of changes the main plot or story. You know, it kind of does something towards the end that kind of resolves everything in a nice bow. It's a lot better than the first film in my opinion. And I remember when this film came out on Blu-ray, like the Blu-rays were out of stock in like a couple of minutes. Like, dude, that's insane, dude. Number 6, we got Anohana, The Flower We Saw That Day. Another series I watched earlier on this year, and I've pretty much done a review of it. Go check it out. And one word I can give this film is wholesome. This film is just this series is adorable and just really moving, you know, like it's really interesting because the other characters kind of deal with like the guilt of like what happened to their childhood friend, and it's just an interesting drama in a way. It has a lot of interesting like character interactions and moments, but you need to really watch it. It's wholesome, it's emotional, it's just beautiful, man. Go check it out. Number 5, we have got Wolf Children, another Hisoto film, probably his best one so far in my opinion. From the first 10 minutes of this film, I thought it was gonna be a weird furry love tale. Like, it was looking like it was gonna be that type of film, but it ended up going into a different direction, and it's about this very young woman in her 20s, I think, just kind of like trying to raise these kids who are half human, half wolves, and you just see the struggle, and she's just kind of like giving up everything just to raise these kids safely so they don't get into a lot of like shenanigans. One child wants to be human while the other one wants to relish being a wolf, but I like how the roles kind of reverse when they get older, because when they're a kid, one of them wants to be human, the other wants to be a wolf, but when they get older, they want to be human and the other one wants to be a wolf, which was interesting and surprising and just awesome, to be honest with you. It has a lot of beautiful moments like this snow sequence. I've done a whole review of this film, so I recommend you watching it to get the full experience. Number 4, we have got Perfect Blue. Now this film is trippy and not one for the faint-hearted because it's got a lot of dark sequences and a lot of dark imagery in it, but I flipping did love this film. I love the character and just kind of like what it's like to be a celebrity, and like how one kind of like deals with the fame and paranoia and like the anxiety of just like being seen everywhere and people being obsessed with you, and she's just trying to escape from it, and she does kind of go a little bit psycho at times, you know. The animation is beautiful, it has such a nice color scheme. It's an old anime, and I kind of like old anime series where the colors don't feel so bright that it kind of burns your eyeballs in a way. It's got this kind of like softness to it that is very visually appealing, and watch it on Blu-ray, man. It's one to watch on the best TV, on the best format possible, man. Go check it out. Check out my full review of it on this channel. But the top 3 were a little bit hard to decide on because these 3 series have been flipping amazing in their own right, / movies, but I decided to do I saw this in February of 2020 and I saw it in the cinema, and my dude, the cinema was packed. This film was beautiful. I feel like it had a much better visual look over Your Name, and I feel like I kind of enjoyed the story a little bit more over Your Name. The characters were also a little bit more interesting, particularly the side characters, because in Your Name it was mainly focusing on the 2 lovers, the 2 main characters, and it's cool to see a little cameo of them in this film, so it kind of confirms that this film is set in the same world as Your Name, which is awesome. And I just love this film. It's just such a fun film, you know. But I think I appreciate it in the dub. The sub and the dub are just both amazing in their own rights. They feel a little bit different from one another, but I feel like they're cool and unique in their own way. Obviously I preferred it in the dub because the animation is just you watch it for the background art, dude, because man, I don't know how Shinkai does the backgrounds, but man, it looks so realistic. Such a wonderful, wholesome film. Check out my full review of this film as well. Number 2, we have got One Piece, basically episodes 1 to 900, and yeah, I've seen all of them. I started this show back in March, and I was originally going to watch like only 5 episodes of this show. I was going to be like, let's just watch 5 episodes of this show and just kind of stop. And I ended up at episode 500 in like a month. Like, I was like, what happened? What happened? How did I get here? But man, One Piece is about this 17-year-old boy called Luffy who wants to become king of the pirates, and he kind of like has to find a crew of people who can help him go along the way. He finds a navigator, a swordsman, a chef, a doctor, a singer, an archaeologist, a shipwright, and they all travel the Grand Line in search for the Grand One Piece. And the interesting thing about this show that I do like is that you don't really watch it to find out what One Piece is or like the mysteries of the world and all that jazz. You kind of like get into it and you just kind of like see what Luffy and the gang are gonna do, what adventures they're gonna get up to, and it's just such a fun, quirky film, you know. Like the art style in like the first half of this show before the time skip was such a Looney Toony look, but then the second half of the art style does change, but it looks a lot more mature. It still has that toony look to it, but it feels more like modern day anime, which is pretty cool, to be honest with you. Some of the best arcs like the Dressrosa arc, Battle of Marine Ford, Water 7, some of the best written arcs are all there. I love all the characters, they're all so unique and different, and this show surprised me. Like, I didn't think I was gonna like an anime show about pirates, and they don't even really act like pirates. They act like normal people, just kind of like having the time of their lives. And I just love the islands they go to, and just the whole world building is just so vast. This world of One Piece just feels gigantic. The people are gigantic. Everything's gigantic. Luffy's appetite is gigantic. Dude, this is just... Oda does such a good job. I will admit the anime's pacing is a little bit slow at times, to be honest with you. And yeah, that's pretty much it, to be honest with you. Apart from that, this show is just what a ball to watch. One day I'll do a ranking of all the arcs and do my full take on this show. But number one, the best anime of 2020 that I saw was Attack on Titan, the final season. Now, it only had 4 episodes so far, but these 4 episodes were the greatest episodes in the entire year. Seeing all these characters in the manga who I flipping read like years ago, it was just such a cool experience. I seem to appreciate the Mali characters like Gabby, Falco, Zofia, Udo, Colt, Peak, Galliard, Reiner, and Zeke a lot more in the anime form than I did in the manga, even though it's the same story. I guess just seeing them talk and interact and move around is just so cool to look at, and MAPPA have done an insane job. I will admit it does look different to Wit Studios, because Wit Studio did have a slightly brighter color palette in their designs compared to MAPPA's slightly toned down and more grounded and realistic look. But I feel like it's a good job, you know. It feels more mature, it feels more gritty, which kind of suits this final arc in a way. And God, I just can't wait for the rest of these episodes to come out, dude. Like, man, let's go. But that's all for the anime I watched this year. What was your favorite series of 2020? It's been a pretty weird year, but I mean, we got a lot of cool series that came out this year, and I can't wait for the series that are to come in 2021. Like this video, subscribe for more anime and manga reactions. With that said, thank you for watching, and as always, Boy Did Reviews signing out.